I have amusing Russian news.
Amusing Russian news.
Yeah.
Let's hear it. Go for it.
Okay, those that sit here and watch what happens in Ukraine, right,
Yes,
with this war that's going on. And it's a war, make no mistake about it. The Russians want to call it something else, but it's a war. People are dying, okay?
Right.
There are people that have been displaced. There's some pretty scary shit that's going on there. I don't want to sweep that under the rug by any means whatsoever. And one of the things that we talk about here when we look at this is how the Russians are trying to cope with this thing.
Yeah.
Because they've knocked down the hornet's nest, and now they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
That's kind of what this is.
Yeah,
And they're going in. One of the things we talk about is their hardware, okay? Military hardware. And
or lack thereof.
Yes. And the ability to do what they claim that they're doing. You know, the drone... The big Russian drones that were taking aerial pictures, and they found that it was just a 35 millimeter camera with a
taped to
something, and it was remote control pushing a thing and winding the film or whatever it was doing.
Right.
Dig this shit. This is hilarious.
Oh my God.
Russian fighter jets are have become a bit of a problem. I've seen some of the raw footage of them strafing neighborhoods, shooting rockets into people's houses, and they're causing untold problems. And there are pilots from Ukraine that are getting different aircraft from like Poland and Germany, and I think here in the United States as well. And they've been wreaking havoc and causing problems for the Russians as well. And so every once in a while, Russian fighter jets get knocked out of the sky.
Well, that's because the Russians are flying paper airplanes.
Basically so. You're not too far from the fact here, because wrecked Russian fighter jets are being found with rudimentary GPS receivers literally taped to the dashboard of the aircraft.
Wow.
They're in
like
Ukraine.
A Garmin or something?
Pretty much, yeah. Because their inbuilt navigation systems are so bad. This is coming to us from the UK Defense Secretary. Speaking at the National Army Museum in London yesterday, Ben Wallace commemorated those who died in World War II and called Russia's invasion of Ukraine senseless and self-defeating. He also said there was evidence suggesting Russian military hardware was being pushed to the breaking point by the invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah, well,
they weren't prepared
they were
for
not
any of this.
at all prepared.
Remember, this was a 3-day operation.
Yeah.
We're at day 75, I think, something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
All right. Ben said that GPS receivers have been found taped to the dashboards of downed Russian Su-34s. That's a high-end plane.
Yeah.
So the pilots knew where they were due to the poor quality of their own systems.
Wow.
They weren't even using the suction cup phone mount with the
duct tape.
They taped a Garmin or a TomTom.
Something there. Yeah.
This is what he said, presumably in a British accent.
Right.
The result is that whilst Russia have large amounts of artillery and armor that they like parading, they are unable to leverage them for combined arms maneuver and just resort to mass indiscriminate barrages.
Yes.
The Su-34, right, the Russian fighter jet, was first manufactured during the Soviet Union in the early 1990s, but is still one of Russia's leading fighter jets. Now, those planes are expensive.
Right.
And they've constantly been upgrading.
War toys
are pricey.
Expensive.
Yeah. Now, Ukraine has shared abundant evidence of what it says are Russia's attempts to patch over issues with old military equipment and bypass equipment shortages. Last month, Ukrainian troops paraded a Russian drone that had been covered in duct tape and fitted with a generic plastic bottle top for a fuel cap. You know, when you buy a 20-ounce like Coca-Cola, they take one of those and that's the cap to keep the fuel.
Wow, man.
In late March, Ukrainian troops found Russian army bandages dating back to 1978 discarded on a battlefield.
Wow.
In his Monday speech, Wallace also said Russian vehicles, quote, are frequently found with 1980s paper maps of Ukraine in them. Not only are they paper maps, they're not even updated.
Wow.
And that soldiers are using pine logs as makeshift protection on logistical trucks and attaching overhead cope cages to their tanks.
What?
I'm not sure exactly what he means.
I'm not
by
either.
that. Meanwhile, Russia held its annual May 9 Victory Day military parade in Moscow yesterday, but canceled the Air Force flyby due to what it said was bad weather.
Oh, right. Yes. No, I did see that. Yeah. But they're speculating.
The weather wasn't bad.
Well, the weather was not bad, but they're speculating.
During his speech, President Vladimir Putin did not declare all-out war on Ukraine as Western officials, including Wallace, had expected. Instead, praising the valor of Russian troops fighting in the eastern Donbas region and slamming NATO and the U.S.
Well, that's what we expected of him.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. This is what you're fighting, okay?
Right. Paper airplanes and GPS taped to
loads of duct tape, using the screw-on cap from a Coca-Cola bottle as a fuel cap.
Right. So, do you think maybe the Ukrainians could just take them out with a bunch of slingshots?
They basically are. There had been some reports of Russian jets fighting so low to the ground that guys on the ground with with an AK or even an M16 were able to shoot at it and screw it up. Maybe not knock it down completely, but just force it to have to be repaired.
At least force it to the ground. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're running out of stuff.
Well, it's like you said. It's going to be a war of attrition.
It's a joke is what it is.
It is.
It's a joke that's costing lives, unfortunately.
It's a joke that's not funny.
What is funny is how they thought that they could do this and how they could
and they can't.
Off.
Right.
They grossly overestimated their own abilities to.
Yeah. Well, they grossly overestimated
Ukraine.
Their shit, their stuff.
Well, and this leads to what we had talked about yesterday about people in the Pentagon. It's like, well, what about the whole nuclear thing? He keeps throwing it around, and a lot of the generals are going. They're just shaking their heads, going. The reports, the intelligence reports that we're getting. Not just from Russia, but from Ukraine. Yeah. And what we're seeing that they're fighting this war with.
We're not worried.
We don't think we have anything to worry about. Now, that's not to say that, Russia has nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
The trick is getting it from point A to point B.
Right. Does it really work is the question. Is it going to fire?
Probably not.
I don't understand why they just ride by on bicycles with Snap and Pops and just throw them.
That's what it looks like. There's that parallel.
Boxes of Snap and Pops. Pop, pop, pop.
Yeah, and you remember all this talk prior to the war about, I think it was Putin that said it himself. He said they had these hypersonic weapons.
Yes, right.
And there was some doubt amongst people in the Pentagon that that was even
that it existed.
Now, apparently China does have that, but Russia, Russia, if they have it, they bought it off the Chinese maybe. And then I saw, was it last week or week before, that there was a test done in conjunction with the U.S. military and I think the British military of a hypersonic defense system that had like a 98% success rate.
Yeah. 98? Mm-hmm. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some video of some deal. It's a weird looking thing. It's like a small barrel, about the size of a beer keg maybe.
Right.
Or smaller, maybe like a pony keg, and they can launch it. And it has stabilization on it so it can kind of hover in the air, and it is filled with this armament. And it just sticks out like chaff, if you will. So any rockets that come anywhere near it are going to be directed into it. And it's a relatively inexpensive piece of equipment that they can use, and they can just launch this thing, and it just kind of hovers in the air. The timing is kind of, you have to get it fairly correct. But it's not that hard.
Right.
To do that. And it's a pretty impressive piece, and it stays in the air for about a minute and a half.
Yeah.
But it's not high math to figure out if you've detected the launch and figured out its target, where it's going to be, when it's going to be.
Right.
Then you can put this thing in the middle of it. And there it is.
Take care of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's up.
It's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous when you look at. He really just needs to quit.
He does.
Just needs to back off, man. This is going nowhere.
Mm-hmm. It is, as we said, a war of attrition. He's not going to quit until they've run out of stuff.
And it's going to happen.
It may happen sooner than later.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think that there's going to be a point where Russia's just going to have, and the way they'll do it, they'll just claim victory and walk away.
Right.
Regardless of what the outcome is.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we've proved our point, so we're leaving.
Right.
I'll see y'all at the G20.
But right. No. I don't think they're going to be in the G20 for much longer.
Well, apparently, Putin accepted the invitation to go. I don't know who invited him. Maybe he invited himself. I don't know.
I think he did. I think he called them and said, "I'm coming," and they went, "We didn't invite you. Why?
You're not one of the top 20.
I'm sending in my RSVP. You weren't invited, sir."
But they were like, this ought to be interesting.
Yeah. I guess they're going to let him go.
That's not until, I think, July.
Right. Yeah, no, it's this summer. Yeah.
He may be dead by then. I don't know. He will have lost Ukraine.
We can hope.
Yeah. He'll come in and be shaking hands and saying hey to everybody and going, yeah, that thing in Ukraine, we don't talk about that. And that's a whole thing. And then the G20 is going to say, guess what? These sanctions that all of us put onto you are going to go now for you paying for the reconstruction of Ukraine and reestablishing them as their own sovereign country.
Yeah.
And I can hear it now, the Prime Minister of Australia back over going, yeah, you can't.
You can't.
Because that's, they throw that word around like, so the Scots.
Yeah, the Brits.
The Scots, the Australians, well, sort of the same anyway. But
I kind of like it.
I do too.
I'm using it a lot more now.
I have as well.
Well, it's pretty appropriate.
In certain times. Yes.
Some people just are.